Imagine yourself in an ancient world where the Nile and Euphrates rivers were not just sources of life, but arteries of great civilizations. Majestic pyramids rise on the horizon, their shining stones reflecting sunlight as if the gods themselves had ordained their construction. In Babylon, the sound of water cascading down incredible tiered terraces can be heard. The statue of Zeus looms so grandly that its smile seems to bring time itself to life. This world was full of mystery, ambition, and an unending thirst to leave a mark on history. The seven wonders of the world are not mere structures. They are the embodiment of ambition, genius, and faith in the immortality of the human spirit. They seemed to say, "Look at what we are capable of. We will never be forgotten." This list, reaching us from the depths of centuries, has become a unique symbol of humanity's indomitable will, its ability to overcome the impossible. But how did the idea of compiling exactly 7 wonders come about? The roots of this list go back to antiquity, to a time when philosophers, travelers, and scholars ruled the world, striving to classify and comprehend everything around them. Herodotus, known as the father of history, and his followers were the first to describe the great creations of that era. However, the definitive list was formed a little later, thanks to the works of Callimachus of Cyrene, a librarian at the Library of Alexandria. Why 7? In the ancient world, this number was considered sacred, symbolizing completeness and perfection. These wonders emerged in an era when civilizations reached unprecedented heights in architecture, engineering, and art. Egyptian pharaohs, Babylonian rulers, and Greek tyrants used their wealth to erect buildings that were meant to survive centuries. But it's important to remember that they were not built merely for beauty. The pyramids were the embodiment of divine grandeur, worshipped by millions. The world around them was vastly different from today. Picture caravans crossing endless desert sands to deliver precious materials for construction, sailors conquering turbulent waters. The Colossus of Rhodes is a piece of history that shows how far a person, driven by a dream and the pursuit of immortal glory, can go. The 7 wonders of the world are a bridge between the past and the present. They not only tell of the achievements of those times, but also remind us that dreams can transcend centuries. Now, let's embark on a journey through time and discover how each of these magnificent structures came into being, who created them and why, and how they changed the world. Now, let's travel to Egypt, the land where the story of the wonders of the world began. Amidst the sands and the scorching desert sun stands a monumental structure that still amazes with its grandeur, the Great Pyramid. The only one of the 7 wonders of the world to have survived to this day, the pyramid was built around 2560 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, Cheops. This structure, nearly 147 meters high, was the largest in the world for millennia. Today, it is slightly shorter due to the loss of its upper casing layers, but it remains a symbol of the ingenuity and ambition of ancient Egyptian civilization. Its construction process is a true enigma. Approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, with a total weight estimated at 6 million tons, were required to build the pyramid. Each block, depending on its size, weighed between 2.5 and 80 tons. How did the ancient Egyptians move such massive stones? Scientists believe they used sledges sliding on wet sand to minimize friction. Recent discoveries have shown that the Egyptians built special canals and platforms to deliver stone blocks directly to the construction site. The pyramid was encased in smooth blocks of white limestone that reflected sunlight, turning it into a dazzling beacon in the desert. This casing, alas, has almost completely disappeared, but it once made the pyramid truly unforgettable. The technology behind the pyramid's construction continues to be debated. Some suggest that the blocks were lifted using straight ramps that lengthened as the pyramid rose. Others are convinced that spiral ramps or a complex system of levers were used. Regardless of the method, it was an engineering marvel that still inspires awe today. However, the pyramid was not merely an engineering project. It held deep spiritual significance. Pharaoh Khufu considered himself a divine intermediary between earth and sky, and the pyramid was his tomb. The central burial chamber, carved from granite, was located deep within the pyramid. It was protected by intricate systems of passages and massive stone plugs, designed to safeguard the burial from robbers. The Egyptian laborers who created this wonder received food and water, providing them with the strength for their hard work. Recent excavations have revealed that many of the workers were skilled craftsmen rather than slaves, as was long believed. When it comes to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza, one can't help but wonder, how did the ancient Egyptians, without modern technology, manage to create such a colossal structure? The answer lies in their astonishing technological achievements, which were ahead of their time. Above all, the precision of the pyramid's design is striking. Its sides are oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal directions, and its base is leveled with minimal height difference. To create a level foundation, the builders used a water leveling technique, which allowed for exceptional structural stability. Construction required precise calculation and organization. The Egyptians demonstrated mastery in using ramps. One possible technology involved spiral ramps, which allowed for a reduced incline angle and distributed the effort. Ramps are inclined structures that the ancient Egyptians used to lift heavy stone blocks to great heights during the pyramid's construction. Imagine a long, gentle slope along which you can pull a stone upwards. How did it work? Stone blocks were placed on sledges, and these sledges were pulled by workers up the ramp surface, making the sledges slide more easily. The sand underneath was wetted, which eased the work. As the pyramid grew taller, the ramp was either extended or a new one was built to continue lifting the blocks. Ramps could vary: straight, leading to one side of the pyramid, or spiral, winding around it. Such a ramp allowed blocks to be lifted gradually without creating too steep an incline. Once a block reached the desired height, it was placed into the pyramid structure. It was an incredibly labor-intensive but effective system, especially considering the Egyptians lacked modern cranes. Such engineering solutions helped lift massive blocks to a height of over 140 meters. The work with granite deserves special admiration. These dense and heavy stones were brought from afar and worked to a perfect smoothness using copper tools, sand, and water. This technology was incredibly labor-intensive, but it ensured the high quality of the interior finishing of the pyramid. The ancient Egyptians also employed a system of relieving chambers above the burial chamber to redistribute the pressure from the massive layers of stone blocks. This solution demonstrated their profound understanding of physics and building structures. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not only impressive for its size and engineering achievements, but is also shrouded in numerous myths and mysteries that have fascinated humanity for millennia. These stories are not mere fiction. They reflect our yearning to unravel the secrets of the past and touch the grandeur of ancient civilizations. One of the most popular myths is the assumption that the Pyramid of Giza is not just a tomb, but a device possessing a special energetic power. Some proponents of this theory believe the pyramid could have been used for energy generation, and its shape and orientation to the cardinal directions have special significance. For example, its proportions are said to incorporate the so-called golden ratio, a mathematical harmony found in nature and architecture. These coincidences give rise to hypotheses that the ancient Egyptians might have possessed knowledge lost to us. Another mystery remains why the interior of the pyramid lacks the traditional paintings or bas-reliefs characteristic of most tombs. No gods, scenes of the afterlife, or prayers dedicated to the pharaoh have been found in its inner chambers. This absence of decorative elements raises many questions. Perhaps the pyramid had a special ritualistic purpose, or its interior decoration was never completed. There are also myths related to extraterrestrial civilizations. Some hypotheses suggest it could have been built by representatives of an extraterrestrial civilization. Proponents of this idea point to the incredible precision of block fitting, the mass of the stones, and the complexity of their transport. Of course, this theory is not supported by scientific facts, but it adds an aura of mysticism and intrigue to the pyramid. In the 19th century, British engineer Flinders Petrie discovered several relieving chambers above the burial chamber. These spaces were likely used to redistribute the weight of the stones to prevent collapse. However, modern technologies such as muon scanning have revealed new voids, one of which is a vast chamber located above the Grand Gallery. Scientists still debate its purpose. Was it another relieving chamber, a secret room, or something else entirely? Legends also surround Khufu's treasures. In ancient times, it was believed that the pharaoh was buried with incredible wealth, including gold, precious stones, and rare artifacts. However, no treasure has ever been found. It is likely that robbers plundered the pyramid even in antiquity, but there are those who believe that secret chambers concealing this wealth are yet to be discovered. The pyramid's connection to astronomy is another great mystery. Some researchers claim that the three large pyramids of Giza are aligned to match Orion's belt. This is supported by studies showing that the ancient Egyptians paid immense attention to astronomy. Furthermore, the ventilation shafts within the pyramid are oriented to align with the positions of stars like Sirius and Aldebaran, enhancing the sense of its celestial connection. Many of the pyramid's mysteries are linked to the personality of Pharaoh Khufu. Historians still debate, was he a despotic ruler who forced thousands of workers to build the pyramid, or a wise leader who inspired his subjects to create this magnificent monument? And finally, one of the most captivating legends claims that the Great Pyramid holds the secrets of the ages, that it hides texts or artifacts that reveal the lost knowledge of ancient civilizations. The Pyramid of Giza remains not only the greatest architectural achievement, but also a symbol of humanity's quest to unravel the unknown. Each new discovery opens more questions, making it an eternal enigma that continues to inspire researchers even after thousands of years. After the mysteries and engineering achievements of the Great Pyramid of Giza, we transition to a completely different world, a verdant oasis that was said to rise amidst the sands of ancient Babylon. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the second of the Seven Wonders, became a symbol of humanity's dream of harmony between nature and architecture. But were they a reality? The Hanging Gardens were described as a magnificent structure. Cascades of terraces planted with flowers, trees, and shrubs, creating the illusion that they were suspended in mid-air. According to legend, the gardens were built by King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BC. The gardens were intended not only to beautify the palace, but also to symbolize the king's might, who had subjugated nature to his will. However, the first thing that raises doubts is the absence of mentions of the gardens in texts from Nebuchadnezzar's own time. Chronicles of that period, including cuneiform tablets, detail the construction of palaces, temples, and canals, but nowhere do they mention the wondrous gardens. The first descriptions of the gardens appeared only several centuries later, in the works of ancient authors like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus. They might have based their accounts on oral legends or misinterpretations of earlier records. Another question is how such a complex irrigation system could have been created in a desert environment. According to legends, water was transported to the upper terraces using a mechanism resembling Archimedes' screw, a device that lifted water to great heights. This system would have needed to constantly supply water to vast terraces full of plants, requiring an incredible level of hydraulic knowledge. However, evidence of such a mechanism in Babylon has yet to be found. An alternative hypothesis relocates the gardens from Babylon to Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. Historians believe that the gardens might have been created by the Assyrian king Sennacherib, who was renowned for his engineering achievements. Traces of a complex system of canals and aqueducts, which could have been used for irrigation, have indeed been discovered in Nineveh. These findings make the Nineveh version more plausible than the traditional Babylonian legend. Equally enigmatic is the question of the origin of the name Hanging Gardens of Babylon. In whose honor were they named? Semiramis is more of a mythological figure than a historical one. Her image personifies strength, beauty, and wisdom, but there is no real confirmation of her existence. Scholars believe that the name Semiramis might have been attributed to the gardens later to associate them with the legendary queen. But let's learn a little about who this Semiramis actually was. Her figure is shrouded in myths and mysteries, and she remains one of the most remarkable women of antiquity. Semiramis, or Shamiram as she was known in Assyria, was a real historical figure. She was the wife of the Assyrian king Shamshi-Adad V, who reigned in the 9th century BC. After her husband's death, she became regent for her son Adad-nirari III, temporarily taking over the administration of one of the most powerful empires of that time. This fact alone makes her unique for an era when women rarely played an active role in politics. However, her story is not limited to dry facts. Greek and Roman historians, such as Diodorus Siculus and Herodotus, transformed Semiramis into an almost mythical figure. In their descriptions, she appeared as a wise, powerful, and incredibly beautiful woman whose exploits bordered on legend. Her name was associated with the founding of Babylon and the construction of its walls, temples, and palaces. Many believed that she was the inspiration or even the creator of the Hanging Gardens, which became one of the 7 wonders of the world. Semiramis was also depicted as a skilled military leader who expanded the empire's borders. According to one legend, she even attempted to conquer India, but, facing strong resistance, was forced to retreat. Other accounts emphasize her wisdom and ability to find solutions in the most complex situations, which allowed her to remain in power in a world ruled by strong men. Legends about her origin also add to her mystique. According to one story, she was the daughter of the goddess Derceto, who abandoned her newborn daughter to fate. The girl was found by a shepherd and later noticed and married by a king. This mythical plot was likely added later to emphasize her divine origin and greatness. However, many of her exploits described in ancient texts are not confirmed by historical data. Historians believe her actual role was more modest. As regent, she governed the state during a period of instability and consolidated her son's power. Nevertheless, her name became a symbol of female strength and leadership. Semiramis became a composite image, incorporating the traits of various influential women and rulers. She was and remains a legend, an embodiment of beauty, wisdom, and power. Her achievements were exaggerated, but she continues to inspire today, serving as an example of how a legend can surpass reality. What might the Hanging Gardens of Babylon have looked like if they truly existed? The descriptions of the gardens preserved in the works of ancient authors inspire researchers and artists to create their image. Reconstructions based on ancient texts and engineering knowledge allow us to imagine what this green oasis might have been like. Imagine a massive, multi-tiered structure built of brick or stone, each terrace supported by strong columns and arches. Flowers, trees, and plants were arranged so that cascades of greenery descending from the upper terraces created the illusion of hanging gardens floating in the air. Terraces were connected by stairs or inclined pathways, allowing palace residents and guests to stroll amidst the lush vegetation. The central element of the garden was likely a complex watering system. Ancient texts describe a mechanism that transported water from the Euphrates River to the top of the structure. It might have been a screw-like mechanism or a series of water lifts that raised water to the upper terraces. Water then flowed down through cascades or small streams, irrigating the plants on each level. The sound of running water created an atmosphere of tranquility, filling the gardens with the sounds of nature. The gardens likely presented a stark contrast to the surrounding desert landscape. The vegetation could have included exotic trees and flowers brought from various regions, such as Media, the homeland of Queen Nitocris. Perhaps among the plants growing there were pomegranates, cypresses, date palms, jasmine, and roses, adding not only beauty but also fragrance to the air. For structural integrity, asphalt and fired bricks, characteristic of Babylonian architecture, were used. A layer of insulation made of stone and reeds impregnated with resin could have prevented water leakage, which was particularly important for keeping the terraces in good condition. The gardens were likely surrounded by high walls, protecting them from the scorching desert sun and wind. In the evening, as the sun set beyond the horizon, the gardens could have been bathed in golden hues of sunset, making them even more majestic. Possibly, the gardens featured fountains, statues, and benches for rest, transforming the place into a true paradise for the ruling elite. Although all these details remain hypothetical, reconstructions allow us to envision how magnificent and wondrous this miracle oasis could have been. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, if they indeed existed, were not only a symbol of engineering prowess, but also the embodiment of a dream of harmony between nature and human genius. Following the grandeur and mysteries of the Hanging Gardens, we travel to Greece, the land of philosophy, art, and profound devotion to its gods. In the heart of this civilization, in sacred Olympia, stood one of the 7 wonders of the world, the statue of Zeus. It became the embodiment of the greatness and power of the supreme god of the Greek pantheon, the god of thunder and lightning, as well as the protector of order and justice. Olympia, the site of Zeus's main sanctuary, became a symbol of the unity of the Greek city-states. Not only were religious rites performed here, but the Olympic Games were also held in his honor. The Games served not only as athletic competitions, but also as a promotion of the ideals of harmony between mind and spirit, ideals associated with Zeus. The statue of Zeus, created by the renowned sculptor Phidias around 435 BC, was more than just a work of art. It became a symbol of God's absolute power over the world. The statue stood approximately 12 meters high, making it one of the largest sculptures of antiquity. Zeus was depicted seated on his throne. His imposing figure personified grandeur and might. In one hand, he held a statuette of Nike, the goddess of victory, symbolizing triumph, and in the other, a scepter with an eagle, representing his dominion over earth and sky. The throne itself was a true masterpiece, adorned with ivory and precious stones. On its surface, Phidias depicted scenes from Greek mythology, emphasizing Zeus's divine lineage and his victories over chaos. This combination of exquisite materials and detailed carving made the statue incredibly impressive, especially when combined with the soft light falling from the temple's windows. For the Greeks, the statue was not only an object of worship, but also the embodiment of an ideal. It symbolized the harmony between the human and the divine, showing how art could reflect the majesty of the gods. Zeus's majestic figure inspired awe and reverence, reminding people of his strength and power. The Temple of Zeus in Olympia became a pilgrimage site, attracting people from all over Greece to behold this masterpiece. The statue of Zeus inspired reminded them of the strength and unity of the Hellenes, as well as the significance of religion in their lives. For the ancient Greeks, it was not merely an image of a god, but a symbol of their culture, faith, and pursuit of perfection. The creation of the statue of Zeus in Olympia became one of antiquity's most complex and ambitious projects, showcasing the incredible skill of ancient Greek sculptors. Phidias, the renowned master of his time, employed unique artistic and engineering techniques to create not just a statue, but an image that would inspire awe and remind people of Zeus's divine power. The core of the sculpture was wood, serving as a skeleton for attaching other materials. Special inserts and joints treated with moisture-resistant compounds were used to strengthen the structure. The frame was hidden beneath layers of gold and ivory, which created— Moving to the details, it should be noted that the ivory, treated with special compounds, gave Zeus's skin a natural hue and radiance. For the robes of Zeus to impart brightness and luster, thin sheets of gold were used. This material symbolized divine radiance, and every detail of his armor, sandals, and cloak was adorned with intricate ornaments that enhanced the sense of wealth and power. On the throne itself, Phidias depicted scenes from mythology, including the battles of gods and titans, emphasizing Zeus's triumphant nature. The throne itself was not merely a base, but a standalone work of art. It was inlaid with precious stones, and on the backrest and armrests, Phidias created carved images of mythological heroes, symbolizing power and wisdom. There were hints of eagles and lightning, attributes of Zeus himself. Each carving was not merely decorative, but told a story, linking Zeus to his role as the supreme god. The statue's details emphasized its grandeur. The light falling through the windows was meticulously planned to illuminate Zeus's figure in such a way that he appeared radiant, as if alive. The effect was enhanced by the reflection of light from the gold and ivory surfaces, creating a mystical atmosphere. Phidias's workshop in Olympia, where the statue was created, was equipped with the latest technology of its time. The finest craftsmen worked there, engaged in processing metals, ivory, and wood. Remains of molds and tools found in this workshop testify to how labor-intensive and precise the process of creating the statue was. The story of the statue of Zeus in Olympia concluded tragically and remains a mystery that researchers are still trying to unravel. This masterpiece of ancient art, created to glorify the supreme god of the ancient Greeks, survived centuries of admiration, but eventually disappeared, leaving behind only memories and legends. For several centuries, the statue of Zeus adorned the Temple of Zeus in Olympia, attracting pilgrims from all over Greece and other regions of the Mediterranean. It was not only a religious object, but also a symbol of cultural greatness. However, with the decline of the Olympic Games and the prohibition of pagan rites in 394 AD by decree of Emperor Theodosius I, the Temple of Zeus lost its significance. Over time, its structures began to decay, leaving the statue without proper protection. The fate of the statue itself remains a subject of discussion. One version states that in the 5th century AD, the statue was moved to Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. There, it was allegedly installed in the palace to continue inspiring people with its beauty and grandeur. However, in 475 AD, a major fire broke out in Constantinople, destroying many buildings and valuables, including, possibly, the statue of Zeus. This fire is considered one of the possible reasons for its disappearance. Other researchers suggest that the statue might have remained in Olympia and been destroyed by natural disasters. Earthquakes, which repeatedly occurred in the region, devastated the Temple of Zeus and its surrounding structures. If the statue truly remained in its original location, it could have been damaged or destroyed beneath the temple's rubble. There is also a theory that the statue was destroyed by Christian fanatics who, in late antiquity, sought to eradicate symbols of pagan religion. The gold and ivory used in its creation could have been dismantled and reused, which might also have contributed to its disappearance. Archaeological findings in Phidias's workshop, where the statue was created, allow for the reconstruction of some details of its appearance and manufacturing technology. However, no physical fragments of the statue itself have ever been found, making it one of the greatest losses to cultural heritage. Today, we can only see the ruins of the Temple of Zeus in Olympia, which was once home to this majestic sculpture. No less important is its memory, which continues to live on through ancient texts, descriptions by ancient travelers, and modern artists' reconstructions. The disappearance of the statue has become a symbol of how even the greatest works of art can be lost to time, leaving behind only memories and inspiration for future generations. After the grandeur of the statue of Zeus in Olympia and the wisdom of the supreme god, we move to Asia Minor, to ancient Ephesus, to get acquainted with another wonder of the world, the Temple of Artemis. This magnificent temple, dedicated to the goddess of nature, hunting, and fertility, was not just a religious site. It became the embodiment of artistic and engineering mastery, as well as the center of cultural and economic life of the ancient world. The Temple of Artemis was considered a wonder of the world, primarily due to its scale and grandeur. Built in the 6th century BC, it became the largest temple of its time, significantly surpassing even the famous Parthenon in Athens in size. It was a building of incredible dimensions. The temple's length exceeded 115 meters, its width was about 55 meters, and the height of its columns reached 20 meters. In total, the temple was supported by 127 columns, arranged in several rows, creating the impression of a grand forest of marble. These columns not only served as support, but also symbolized the harmony between nature and human art. However, it wasn't just the size that made the Temple of Artemis special. Its significance for the people of Ephesus and the entire Greek world was immense. Artemis was one of the most revered goddesses in the Greek pantheon, personifying fertility, the protection of women, and harmony with nature. Ephesus was considered her sacred city, and the temple the place where the goddess manifested her power and mercy. The city's inhabitants believed that Artemis was their patroness. The temple became a pilgrimage site for people from all over Greece and other regions who came to offer gifts and pay homage to the goddess. The Temple of Artemis was not only a religious center, but also a cultural symbol. Its construction and maintenance demonstrated the wealth and power of the Ephesian rulers. Craftsmen and travelers flocked here, bringing their goods, ideas, and customs. The temple became a nexus, connecting various cultures and regions, strengthening Ephesus's role as an international hub. The unique location of the temple also emphasized its importance. It was built on marshy land, but such a site was chosen not by chance. It symbolized Artemis's connection to nature, her power over land and water. The marsh, it was believed, protected the temple from destructive earthquakes, which confirmed its mythological significance. Thus, the Temple of Artemis was not just a wonder of the world. It was a place embodying both engineering prowess and a deep faith in the goddess, who personified hope, protection, and prosperity. People came here not only for rituals, but also to feel a touch of something great, divine, and timeless. The Temple of Artemis in Ephesus was not only grand in its scale, but also stunning in its beauty and architectural finesse. Its builders and sculptors used innovative methods and exquisite materials to create a temple that became a symbol of the perfection of ancient Greek architecture. The temple was dedicated to Artemis, one of the most revered goddesses in the Greek pantheon. She personified nature, hunting, fertility, and the protection of women. Artemis was a goddess to whom people turned for help in childbirth and the protection of young maidens. And her connection to nature was emphasized by her image as a huntress surrounded by wild animals. In Ephesus, she was particularly revered as the goddess of fertility and the patroness of the city, associating her with the region's abundance and prosperity. It was these aspects of her cult that found reflection in the temple's architecture and decoration. The temple was built in the Ionic style, known for its elegance and proportions. Its massive columns, about 20 meters high, not only supported the roof, but also created an impression of lightness and harmony. In total, the temple had 127 columns, each adorned with carvings depicting mythological scenes, patterns, and symbols associated with the goddess Artemis. Some of the columns were so exquisitely decorated that they were considered works of art in themselves. The main part of the temple was built of marble, which gave it a radiant appearance in the sun. Precious materials such as gold and ivory were used for some details, underscoring the wealth and grandeur of Ephesus. Carved panels adorning the walls and porticos depicted scenes from myths related to Artemis, hunting, and nature. These bas-reliefs not only decorated the temple, but also told stories familiar to every visitor. The central place in the temple was occupied by the statue of Artemis, which was a masterpiece in itself. It was made of gold and ivory, and its clothing was covered with images of animals and fertility symbols, such as bees and deer. This emphasized the goddess's connection to nature and her role as the protector of all living things. The statue, according to descriptions, had a solemn and majestic appearance, inspiring awe in everyone who entered the temple. Another unique feature of the temple was its roof. It was covered with terracotta tiles and adorned with sculptural elements such as acroteria, figures placed on the edges and apex of the roof. These sculptures depicted mythical creatures and symbols associated with Artemis, adding even more decorative richness to the temple. Particular attention was paid to the temple's location. It was built to blend harmoniously with the surrounding landscape. The temple rose on a massive marble base that protected it from the moisture of the marshy soil. This base itself was adorned with carvings and served as a symbolic transition between the earthly and the sacred territory dedicated to the goddess. The interior space was no less impressive. It was designed to direct the visitor's gaze toward the statue of Artemis. Light penetrated the temple through high windows in the walls, creating an effect of mysterious radiance that seemed to emanate from the statue itself. The temple floor was paved with marble tiles and inlaid with precious stones, adding further luxury to the interior. This masterpiece of ancient architecture was repeatedly subjected to destruction, but each time it was restored, reflecting not only the builder's skill, but also the deep devotion of the people of Ephesus to their goddess. The first significant destruction occurred in 356 BC, when the temple was set ablaze by Herostratus. He intentionally set fire to the temple, seeking to enter history. The fire destroyed architectural elements and the roof, and also damaged the statue of Artemis. This act provoked immense anger among the people of Ephesus and the entire Greek world. Herostratus's name was cursed, and attempts were made to erase him from history by prohibiting any mention of him. However, instead of leaving the site in ruins, the people of Ephesus decided to rebuild the temple with even greater splendor. Thanks to generous donations from all over Greece, as well as financial support from Alexander the Great, the temple was reconstructed, even more magnificent than before, with even more exquisite decorations and improved construction. This restoration became a symbol of perseverance and faith, proving that culture and religion can overcome even the greatest hardships. But tragedy did not bypass the temple in the future. In the 3rd century AD, Ephesus was attacked by the Goths, who plundered the city and destroyed the temple. This event marked a turning point in its history. The temple was no longer rebuilt on its full scale. By this time, the influence of Christianity in the region was growing, and the cult of Artemis began to gradually fade. The remains of the temple were used as building material for new structures, including Christian churches, such as the famous Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. The final destruction occurred as a result of natural cataclysms, earthquakes, which repeatedly shook the region and destroyed the temple's remnants. By the 6th century AD, the site where one of the greatest wonders of the world once stood had turned into abandoned ruins. Despite this, the memory of the Temple of Artemis lived on in ancient texts. In the 19th century, archaeologists began excavations in Ephesus, discovering the remnants of the temple's foundation, as well as fragments of its columns and decorations. These findings allowed for a general impression of its grandeur and significance to be reconstructed. Today, the site where the temple stood attracts travelers from all over the world. The site where the Temple of Artemis once stood in Ephesus is now an archaeological zone near the modern city of Selçuk in Turkey. It is one of the most famous sites of the ancient world. Although only ruins remain of the temple itself, modern visitors can see traces of the foundation, a few restored columns, and fragments of marble blocks that recall the once majestic structure. Moving from the grandeur of the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, we travel to the coast of the Aegean Sea, to the city of Halikarnassus, located on the Aegean coast. Modern Bodrum in Turkey, it was here that another wonder of the world stood, the magnificent mausoleum, built in honor of King Mausolus and his wife Artemisia.
This monument became not only a symbol of eternal love and devotion, but also the embodiment of rulers' ambitions who sought to leave their mark on history. Mausolus, ruler of Caria, lived in the 4th century BC. His lands were under the influence of the Persian Empire, but he was effectively an independent ruler, skillfully navigating between the great powers of his time. Mausolus was an outstanding politician and strategist.
He strengthened his power, expanded the borders of Caria, and turned Halicarnassus into a prosperous cultural and economic center. One of his main achievements was the relocation of Caria's capital to Halicarnassus, where he began a grand construction project, including the fortification of palaces and, of course, the mausoleum, which would later become legendary. However, Mausolus was known not only for his political activities, but also for his close relationship with his wife and sister, Artemisia. Artemisia was not just a family member, but also a political partner. Artemisia was not only a loyal companion to Mausolus, but also his equal in governing the state. She was distinguished by her intelligence, education, and desire to enhance Caria's glory. Together, they created a cultural heritage that amazed contemporaries and descendants. After Mausolus's death in 353 BC, Artemisia was devastated by her loss. To immortalize his memory and express her love, she decided to build a magnificent mausoleum. This monument was intended not only to be a burial place, but also to symbolize the grandeur of Mausolus and Caria. Legends say that Artemisia mourned her husband so deeply that she even drank his ashes to carry a part of her with her always. Although this fact may be an exaggeration, it underscores the depth of her grief and devotion. For the construction of the mausoleum, Artemisia engaged the best craftsmen and architects of her time, including Satyrus and Pythios, as well as the famous sculptors Scopas, Braxis, Leocharis, and Timotheus. She personally supervised every stage to ensure that the mausoleum would be a worthy commemoration of her husband. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was not just a tomb. It became a symbol of love, devotion, and ambition. Its construction laid the foundation for future architectural masterpieces and cemented Mausolus's name in history. Artemisia forever entered history as a woman capable of transforming her grief into the greatest of arts. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus became not only the burial place of King Mausolus and his wife Artemisia, but also an outstanding architectural masterpiece that impressed with its unique combination of styles. Its design incorporated elements of Greek, Carian, and Persian architecture, symbolizing the multifaceted culture of Caria and its connection to various civilizations. The height of the mausoleum was approximately 45 meters, making it one of the tallest buildings of its time. It rose on a massive rectangular base of white marble. The base, a stepped platform, symbolized strength and grandeur, creating a powerful foundation for the entire structure. Above the base rose rows of columns executed in the Ionic style, which surrounded the tomb. In total, there were 36 columns supporting light and elegant structures. Between the columns were decorative panels with bas reliefs depicting scenes from mythology and great exploits, emphasizing the idea of Mausolus's divine grandeur. The pyramidal roof of the mausoleum attracted particular attention.
It consisted of 27 stepped layers that converged towards the apex, crowned with a statue depicting a chariot with the figure of Mausolus. This figure, made of marble, symbolized Mausolus's triumph and magnificence. The chariot, driven by Mausolus himself, was an expression of his power and immortality, as if he were embarking on an eternal journey. The sculptural decoration of the mausoleum deserves separate admiration. 4 renowned sculptors, Skopas, Braxius, Leochares, and Timotheus, worked on the 4 sides of the building, creating scenes that reflected not only the lives of Mausolus and Artemisia, but also their cultural heritage. Among the most famous depictions were battles of Amazons, maritime scenes, and scenes involving gods and heroes. Each side of the mausoleum had a unique style, reflecting the artist's mastery and individuality. Statues of Mausolus and Artemisia, rendered in natural size, were placed on top of the mausoleum, emphasizing their role as rulers worthy of worship. The details of the sculptures, including the folds of clothing, facial expressions, and the dynamism of poses, showed the outstanding.
Although the mausoleum at Halicarnassus has long been destroyed, individual parts of this magnificent structure have survived and provide an idea of its former glory. Thanks to these findings, archaeologists and historians can understand how the tomb was constructed and appreciate the mastery of ancient architects and sculptors. Among the most valuable preserved fragments are parts of the sculptural compositions. They were found during excavations in the 19th century and are currently housed in the British Museum in London. Among them are relief panels depicting battles of Amazons, maritime scenes, and mythical creatures. These details not only demonstrate the artistic skill of the era, but also reveal the cultural context in which the mausoleum was created, providing us with an idea of the strength and power of King Mausolus and his entourage, as well as showing how much themes of war and heroism were valued at that time. Fragments of columns and architectural details that preserve traces of painting and carving are of particular importance. These elements confirm that the mausoleum combined several styles: Greek, Carian, and Persian. For example, the preserved Ionic order capitals testify to the influence of classical Greek architecture, while some decorative motifs indicate Persian influence. This underscores Halicarnassus's status as a cultural crossroads where Eastern and Western traditions intersected. There is also information about the mausoleum's pyramidal roof. Part of the roof was discovered, which, according to researchers, was part of the roofing. It clearly demonstrates how ambitious the plan was to create a huge pyramid above the colonnade, crowned with a chariot sculpture. Another source of information about the mausoleum comes from the written testimonies of ancient authors such as Vitruvius and Pliny the Elder, as well as later chroniclers and travelers. Their descriptions, supplemented by archaeological finds, allow for the general appearance of the mausoleum to be recreated, and for an understanding of its role in the life of Halicarnassus. The collected preserved fragments and descriptions form a coherent picture of the mausoleum as a masterpiece of art and engineering. They help us appreciate the high level of skill of ancient architects and sculptors, as well as understand the influence this tomb had on the development of architecture in the Mediterranean region.
The mausoleum became not only a monument to the memory of King Mausolus, but also compelling evidence of the cultural diversity and creative genius of the ancient world. After the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, we move to the sunny island of Rhodes, where another wonder of the world stood, the Colossus of Rhodes. This monument, glorifying the sun god Helios, became a symbol of courage and strength, inspiring not only the islanders, but the entire ancient world.
Rhodes, located in the heart of the Aegean Sea, was famous for its strategic position and naval power. In 305 BC, the city survived a 360-day siege by Demetrius Poliorcus, the ruler of Cyprus. The Rhodians defended their city, becoming a symbol of resilience and steadfastness. Demetrius, having suffered defeat, was forced to leave behind siege engines, which became spoils of war for the victors. The inhabitants of Rhodes decided to immortalize their victory and thank Helios, whom they considered the patron god of the city. The trophies left from the siege were sold, and the proceeds were directed towards the creation of a grand monument, the Colossus of Rhodes. This statue was intended not only to highlight the greatness and independence of Rhodes, but also to serve as a message to the entire world about the island's strength and unity. The sculptor Chares of Lindos, according to legend, worked on the creation of the Colossus for 12 years. The statue stood approximately 33 meters high, making it one of the tallest structures of the ancient world. The Colossus depicted the sun god Helios in a proud posture. His face was turned towards the sea, and his head was adorned with a halo of sun rays, symbolizing his divine radiance. In one hand, Helios held a torch, guiding sailors, and his appearance inspired reverence and confidence in the island's protection. There is a popular myth that the Colossus stood at the entrance to the harbor, and ships sailed between its legs. Although this version is likely a work of fiction, it emphasizes the statue's grandeur and enhances its legendary status. In reality, the Colossus most likely stood on land, not far from the harbor, so it could be seen from afar as a symbol of protection and prosperity. The construction of the Colossus of Rhodes became a symbol of victory, not only due to its grandiose dimensions, but also because of the profound symbolism invested in it by the people of Rhodes. This statue was not just a monument, it embodied the unity, pride, and might of a city that managed to withstand a formidable enemy. The very process of constructing the Colossus became an act of collective triumph. All strata of society participated in the project, from selling trophies to working on construction. The citizens were not just building a statue, they were creating a symbol of their resilience and independence, which was important to everyone. Each contribution to the construction strengthened the sense of community and mutual support among the inhabitants. It is important to note that the very idea of creating the Colossus as an offering to Helios personified the faith of the Rhodians. They believed their victory was deserved, and the statue became a visible reminder that even the most powerful adversaries can be defeated if one acts with determination and faith. Another significant aspect was the Colossus's location. It was erected in such a place to greet ships approaching Rhodes and to impress visitors and merchants. This was not just an architectural decision, but also a declaration of Rhodes's status as a center of power and trade in the Mediterranean. The statue literally looked out at the sea, welcoming travelers and signaling that Rhodes was a city that could not be conquered. Despite the Colossus of Rhodes becoming a symbol of triumph and power, its fate proved tragic. This magnificent monument was destroyed as a result of one of antiquity's most devastating earthquakes. The tragedy occurred around 226 BC, when a powerful earthquake shook the island of Rhodes. The Colossus, towering at a height of about 33 meters, could not withstand the strong tremors and collapsed. According to ancient sources, massive fragments of the statue were scattered across the territory. Despite this, even in its ruined state, the Colossus continued to awe those who saw it. Pliny the Elder wrote that many travelers came to Rhodes solely to see the remains of this gigantic statue. After the earthquake, the inhabitants of Rhodes appealed to the oracle at Delphi for advice on whether they should restore the statue. However, the oracle advised leaving the statue in its ruined state, explaining it as a sign of the god's will. The Rhodians obeyed the prophecy, and the remains of the Colossus remained in place for several centuries. The fragments of the statue lay on the ground until the 6th century AD, when Arab conquerors captured Rhodes. According to chronicles, the remains of the Colossus were dismantled and sold for scrap metal. Legend has it that it took 900 camels to transport these debris. Despite its physical destruction, the legacy of the Colossus lives on. This monumental creation became a symbol of courage, resilience, and unity, inspiring not only ancient authors, but also subsequent generations. The Colossus of Rhodes became the archetype of colossal statues and served as a source of inspiration for the creation of many sculptures, including the famous Statue of Liberty in New York. After the Colossus of Rhodes, which stood as a symbol of strength and unity, we journey to Egypt, where the lighthouse of Alexandria rose on the island of Pharos. This wonder of the world, remarkable not only for its engineering prowess, but also for its immense practical importance, became one of the most vital navigational structures of the ancient world. The lighthouse of Alexandria was built around the 3rd century BC, during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, one of the Mediterranean's largest trading and cultural centers. The city, founded by Alexander the Great, rapidly transformed into a crucial hub for international trade. Its harbor, protected by the island of Pharos, welcomed ships from all over the known world, but submerged rocks and shallow waters made its entrance perilous. The need for a lighthouse was dictated by the desire to ensure the safety of mariners and strengthen Alexandria's status as the primary maritime port. The lighthouse became a symbol of technical progress and the ambitions of the Hellenistic era. Its height exceeded 100 meters, making it one of the tallest structures of its time. It was the first lighthouse of such scale, and its light, it is said, was visible from a distance of up to 50 kilometers. The lighthouse reflected sunlight using a metal mirror, and at night a massive fire burned at its summit, maintained by special crews for sailors. The lighthouse was a guiding star that saved them from dangers. Many ancient authors admired its operation, describing how it helped ships safely reach the harbor even in stormy weather.
But the lighthouse was significant not only for mariners. It solidified Alexandria's role as a center of trade, culture, and science. Its light seemed to say to everyone approaching the city, "You have arrived at the center of the world." The Lighthouse of Alexandria also symbolized the power and wealth of the Ptolemaic rulers. It was proof of their ability to combine engineering achievements with ambitions to become leaders of the Hellenistic world. Alexandria attracted not only merchants, but also scholars, travelers, and artists who admired its magnificence. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was not merely an engineering achievement of its time, but a true masterpiece of architecture and technology that influenced construction development for centuries. Its design incorporated innovative solutions that allowed it not only to perform its primary function, but also to withstand the trials of time and nature. The lighthouse was constructed from large blocks of light-colored limestone, making it visible even from great distances. These blocks were joined using lead clamps, which gave the structure strength and stability against earthquakes, which were frequent in the region. This was an advanced solution for its time, as it allowed the blocks to move slightly during tremors, preventing collapse. The lighthouse's structure was divided into 3 levels, each playing its role. The lower part consisted of a massive square foundation, ensuring the stability of the entire structure. The middle section was an octagonal tower, which reduced wind resistance and helped distribute the load evenly. The upper section was a cylindrical tower, the lightest, and culminated in a platform where the fire burned. This 3-level design not only gave the lighthouse visual sophistication, but also ensured its stability for centuries. One of the most remarkable technological features of the lighthouse was the mirror used to reflect sunlight. The polished metal surface allowed directing light beams over long distances, significantly improving visibility during the day. At night, a large bonfire was ignited by the resinous fire at the lighthouse's summit, its light also amplified by a mirror. This was one of the first examples of using reflective technology in architecture. The lighthouse's longevity is attributed not only to the quality of materials and the thoughtful design, but also to its symbolic significance for the Ptolemies. The lighthouse was not just a functional structure, but a symbol of their might and craftsmanship, which is why its construction was carried out using the best technologies and resources of the time. Nevertheless, even the most advanced technologies could not fully protect the lighthouse from the destructive forces of nature. The Lighthouse of Alexandria stood for several centuries, remaining not only a navigational landmark, but also a cultural symbol. However, a series of powerful earthquakes, particularly in 956, 1303, and 1480, inflicted irreparable damage. As a result of these earthquakes, the lighthouse crumbled into ruins, and its stones were used to build a fortress that stands in its place to this day. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, towering on the island of Pharos, had a profound impact on the development of lighthouses as navigational structures. Its innovative design and scale set standards for future lighthouse construction. It was not only a wonder of the ancient world, but also a model for future engineering achievements.
First and foremost, the Lighthouse of Alexandria established the concept of a lighthouse as a multifunctional structure. It was not merely a landmark for mariners, but also a symbol of power, strength, and cultural grandeur. This idea of combining practical utility with aesthetics and symbolism found reflection in lighthouses built beyond its reach. Even centuries later, lighthouses not only illuminated the way, but also became architectural landmarks, underscoring the status of port cities. The Lighthouse of Alexandria had a particular influence on technological aspects. Its multi-level structure, including a massive foundation, an octagonal and a cylindrical tower, became a prototype for many lighthouses built along the coasts of Europe and Asia. For example, the three-level design provided stability against wind and earthquakes and also facilitated fire maintenance. The technology of using mirrors to reflect light, although less efficient than modern methods, was revolutionary in itself. The very principle of directed light became the basis for the development of optics in navigation. Modern lighthouses use Fresnel lenses and complex optical systems, but their concept originates precisely from the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which first demonstrated how light reflection could significantly improve visibility for mariners.
The symbolic role of the lighthouse as a light in the darkness was also inherited from the Lighthouse of Pharos. For mariners, the lighthouse became not only a life-saving landmark, but also a symbol of hope, overcoming dangers, and approaching home. Many modern lighthouses have been inspired by the legend of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, including such famous structures as the Tower of Hercules in Spain and the Statue of Liberty in New York, which is also a lighthouse and simultaneously a symbol of greatness and freedom. Let's talk about the fate of the 7 wonders of the world. Why have most of them not survived? The answer is both simple and complex. Many factors influenced this, from natural disasters to human carelessness. Just imagine these majestic structures, erected using technologies that could protect a building from destruction. Architects and builders achieved heights of mastery using stone, wood, and marble. But even the strongest materials are subject to decay. Natural disasters played their role. For example, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, which stood for several centuries, was destroyed by earthquakes and wiped off the face of the earth. The Colossus of Rhodes, earthquakes spare even the strongest structures, breaking them under their own weight. Human activity also led to losses.
The Lighthouse of Alexandria, which proudly towered over the Mediterranean Sea, was partially destroyed by earthquakes, but ultimately dismantled by people who used its stones for construction. A similar fate befell other wonders. Some were destroyed in wars, some were dismantled and reused, some were simply forgotten. But perhaps the most dramatic loss was the Library of Alexandria. Although not directly among the 7 wonders, it symbolizes the same pain of loss as the Colossus of Rhodes or the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, destroyed by an arsonist hoping to enter history. The secret to the longevity of the pyramids of Giza lies in their power. The technologies used by the builders of the wonders eventually disappeared or lost their influence. The Egyptian pyramids survived because they were too massive and built using technologies that surpassed their time. The other wonders, more delicate, were vulnerable. They were built not for eternity, but to impress their contemporaries. They left a mark on history. We still remember them as a symbol of human ambition, genius, and the pursuit of beauty.
The fate of the wonders reminds us that even the greatest achievements are temporary, but the memory of them can live forever if it is preserved and passed on. The restoration and modern analogues of the seven wonders of the world are an attempt not only to honor the memory of ancient masterpieces, but also to draw inspiration from them for creating something new. Although the originals are lost, except for the pyramids of Giza, their grandeur has become a source of inspiration for architects, artists, and engineers worldwide. Let's explore how humanity today is trying to revive their memory. Some wonders have been literally attempted to be restored. For example, in Turkey, archaeologists and architects are working at the site of the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus. While the temple now exists only in the form of individual columns and ruins, its reconstruction is not only a technical task, but also a cultural project aimed at restoring its former glory. It is unlikely that the temple can be fully recreated, but modern technologies allow for detailed 3D models that convey its elegance. Another example of an attempt to revive an ancient wonder: several times in history, projects have been proposed to build a new, giant Colossus of Rhodes. Engineers have proposed a more seismically resistant design to avoid repeating the tragedy. The inspiring lighthouse of Alexandria also finds its modern counterparts. Some historians and architects dream of restoring it to its full scale to make it once again a symbol of maritime navigation and human craftsmanship. In Egypt, even the idea of creating a modern lighthouse based on the original design but using the latest technologies has been discussed. Beyond direct restoration, we see the creation of new wonders of the world that pay homage to the ancient ones.
For instance, Dubai, with its architectural ambitions, resembles ancient civilizations striving to create the impossible. The Burj Khalifa, a majestic tower, rises above the city like a modern colossus, showcasing the power of modern technologies. The harmony of nature and art is also reflected in projects like vertical gardens in Singapore or the famous rooftop garden in Milan. These modern gardens show how ancient dreams of paradise on earth are echoed in our era.